The Hope House in Bangor has received a $6,000 grant from the Bangor Savings Bank Foundation. The grant was awarded to Preble Street, an organization that works to empower those dealing with homelessness, hunger, and poverty. The money will go toward basic needs and intensive casework at the Hope House, which Preble Street took over in February of last year.
Throughout the process, we were really focused on critical needs in our community just because of the reality of the landscape of things going on and trying to help with food insecurity. But Preble Street and their ability to not only help with food insecurity, but also with some of the other services that homeless folks need in order to move on from homelessness and hopefully find housing.
The Bangor Savings Bank Foundation was formed in 1997 with the goal of investing in the community with a focus on education, workforce development, and critical issues.